This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode 46. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I am extremely excited about this week's podcast because it's one day before we open the Freeheel Life shop here in Salt Lake City. And I can't wait because this is year number 6 that we're heading into, and we couldn't be more stoked because it's another year that we get to serve you guys in the Telemark community around the world, and it's just an all-around good time. It means there's snow on the way. We're going to be doing some skiing, some hiking, and all that good stuff. So, newsroom and notes for this week. After prematurely writing our obituary as Telemark skiers not too long ago, Powder Magazine is dead. And I say that with a grain of salt, too, because I wish everyone that was laid off there the best. And I know they'll land on their feet somewhere great and be riding again. And so as a snow community, I want to make sure that we wish them all the best in their future endeavors. As for us, we are still alive, and we will continue to protect the Telemark turn at our shop. Like I said, we're opening tomorrow, and we can't be more excited than we already are. We've been hustling around here to get things ready. We are going to have some new hours. We'll be open Tuesday through Saturday. We're going to give that a shot and see how it goes. Tuesday through Friday, we'll be open noon until 7 p.m. Saturdays, 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. New stuff is arriving every day, and we're going to be posting that up on our website and also on our social media channels. And we are going to be talking more about our mailing list, which will get fired up here. Again, if you're on it, you will get your first email today. And if you're not on it, you can sign up on our website, or I will put a link in the notes here in the podcast so you can sign up for it as well. So today's episode, I am joined by Torstein Myklebostad. And Torstein is an old friend of mine, and I had a really good time talking to him. He grew up in Notodden, Telemark, and like most Norwegians, he started skiing at a young age and was part of a ski jumping club as a young man. He started Telemark skiing in his youth, left his town to go to university and the military before joining the workforce. He eventually took a job in 2009 with Rotofella after answering an ad in the newspaper. He was involved with the sales and marketing of Rotofella's second NTN binding called the Freedom, and in 2016 he became the CEO of Rotofella, a position that he still currently holds. So please welcome to the show, Torstein Myklebostad. All right, Torstein, welcome to the Freeheel Life Podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm great, Josh. I hope you are great as well.
Yeah, things are good here. How's Norway these days?
Well, it's no snow yet, at least not in the lower areas, but it's getting colder, and it should get colder closer to weekend. So it's raining now, so if we're lucky, it's gonna come some snow in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and so what part of Norway are you in right now?
I am in our new factory building, so that's it's 25 minutes from Oslo, west of Oslo, very close to Drammen, which is a suburban town of Oslo.
Yeah, okay, so it's not right in Drammen, it's pretty close to it though.
It's very close, so it's just by the highway, just before you take off to Drammen.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I remember when we came and visited you guys that one time. We went to Nordic World Cup in Drammen, like where they put the snow through the streets.
Exactly. So that's a huge event every year in March. So I think it's really fun because it brings cross country a bit closer to people. So it's always extremely crowded and one of the real major events in Drammen every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that is like an annual event they do there?
That's an annual event. So it's a part of the World Cup FIS World Cup Tour. So it's always the week before the big race in Holmenkollen in Oslo, which is probably one of the most famous venues during the World Cup circus.
Oh, right. Okay. And that's where the ski jump's at too, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So just so I guess just kind of just so we can kind of give people kind of an idea. So you're the current CEO of Rotofella, and
that's correct.
Yeah, man. Maybe maybe before we talk about the business, the Telemark business of Rotofella, maybe like where did you grow up? I mean, did you grow up in this area where you're living now?
No, you know what? I actually grew up in a quite small town in Telemark, in a Telemark county in Norway. So it's not too far from Mount Gaustad, which is a pretty famous mountain in the Telemark region. So let's say that I grew up pretty close to the heart of skiing.
So were you by Gaustatoppen? Like we're over
exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you and I actually that's a whole nother story, man, about a NATO base built inside of a mountain after World War II. That's we'll have to go there. Maybe we'll get to that later in the podcast. But that's Rjukan? Is that how you pronounce it?
That's correct. So it's very close to Rjukan, which is famous for many things. Actually, maybe one of the most famous things about Rjukan is the heavy water action during the World War II. So this was one of the areas that really put, I think, Norwegian skiers on the map. I don't know if you remember. I think the first movie was actually with. With his famous
Kirk Douglas.
Exactly, Kirk Douglas. Yeah.
Yeah, the heroes of Telemark.
Exactly. So for the Telemark sport and Telemark skiing and skiing in general, I think this area is one of the real. Yeah, it's the real heart, I would say, of modern skiing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So so if you grew up kind of in Telemark itself, I guess I didn't even know that, or I must have forgotten that. I mean, did you? I just had my buddy Hamish Moore on, who lives in Morgedal, in some of these other towns, like where you grew up. Was it pretty common to learn Telemark skiing back then?
Yeah, I think, I grew up in the 90s, 80s and 90s. I think you and I are more or less on the same age. So I was born in 78.
Oh yeah, exactly the same age.
So of course, if I remember back, I mean, I was a ski jumper. So that was kind of my sport when I grew up. So I was a ski jumper, and of course, when we did other things than ski jumping, alpine was, some kind of what should I say, not very popular back in, especially not during the 90s. So I think at least where I grew up and the people around me, I think most of us actually went directly to Telemark skis.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That makes sense too. I mean, was jumping fairly popular, like with people that you knew too?
I mean, I think ski jumping has always been a niche sport, let's say. Yeah. but it was a pretty active club where I grew up. And we had some good hills there. So that was what we did. And then I think also that. If you want to do hiking on skis, at least back then, because there was back then no distribution of alpine touring equipment or things like this. So the only equipment you could use if you want, for example, to go up to the Gaustatoppen, Telemark skis was the only option really. So I think if I remember back then, the war was more between snowboarders, I think, and Telemark skiers, and then the alpine guys was kind of weird.
Huh. I guess that makes sense. So I mean, that's kind of how it was in the 90s here too. It's like snowboarding was so big, and I guess you guys had Tadie Hulkinson. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he was from that area, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's from Vinje. I mean, it's close to Morgedal and Rauland, which is a little bit west of Rjukan. So he was, of course, a huge star already from the early teenager time. So I think.
Yeah, is he older than us? Because that dude's been around forever. It seems like.
Yeah, he's been around forever. He's a little bit older, but it's not that much older. So I think he might get closer to 50, but I don't think he is 50 yet. But I'm not sure. But he was a star already from he was like 13, 14 years old.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So I mean. So you were exposed to telemark skiing at like early age. It was obviously like part of the culture. I guess. So did you? I guess. Did you go to university there in Oslo or?
No, I was leaving. I was leaving after high school. So I left Notodden, which is the name of the town. I was there until age 18 or something, finished high school, then went to military up in the north.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to university or to college in Oslo. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you actually land at Rotofella?
It's pretty boring, to be honest. It's not a fantastic funny story. I actually came over a job advertisement in a newspaper.
Really? No way.
And I applied.
Wow.
And I got the job. So
that's amazing. So wait, what year was that when you saw an ad in the newspaper? That had to have been like a while ago.
Yeah, it starts to be a while ago. I mean, the times moves quickly, so it has to be during 2009, I think. I started here beginning of 2010. So I think I signed the contract with Rotofella in September or so in 2009, and then I had a couple of months doing nothing. I needed to rest a bit from my previous job, so I had a chance to relax a little bit before I started up with fresh charged batteries start of 2010. So it's getting closer to 11 years now.
That's crazy. Yeah, I guess I do remember because you were because I think you're in were you sales and marketing back then? When you started?
So I started with exactly. So I started as a sales director back then, and then I've been kind of taking on a bit wider positions. So I took over marketing as well, I think in 2014, and then became CEO in the fall of 2016.
Okay, crazy. Yeah, time does fly, man. We're so young though, right? Come on.
You remember the Burton party we went to in Denver? I think it was in January 2010.
Well, that's what I know, and that's what's so funny is I remember. Yeah, so I mean, you came in to Rotofella at like a super interesting time too, because the Rotofella Freeride NTN binding would have just come out in 2009, I think. Is that right?
Exactly. 8 or 9, I'm not sure. I think it was around 8 or 9. I actually don't remember. It was 1 or 2 years before I started.
Right, and then because I think 2011 would have been the Freedom binding. So that's crazy.
Yeah, or
you were
12, I think.
Or 12. Okay, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. Man, that's crazy. So you came in at a time when literally everything was changing, which is at least in the telemark side for sure. But what do you remember? I mean, you had a little bit of telemark experience, and had you even seen NTN bindings before you started your position there?
No, not really. So I mean, I had some years when I didn't ski too much, to be honest and say. I was traveling a lot around, working several places in Europe. So I didn't ski too much between, let's say 2000 and 2009, of course, during some holidays. My wife is also quite an active skier and snowboarder. So, of course, during weekends and some holidays, we did some skiing. But I have to admit that I had a couple of years where I went over to Alpine because my knees were a bit hurting. So I had, but I had, of course, still my Telemark gear. So I was switching a little bit around. And then starting in Rotofella, I did never test NTN until I started in Rotofella. So that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that must have been crazy because all of a sudden you come in and it's like, yeah, especially if you've taken a little bit of time off and then you walk into a place that's been innovating on a completely different binding system. I mean, that's got to have been kind of.
It was pretty bold.
Yeah, no, for sure.
To do that,
and I mean, it took so long. You know, I had Kim Miller on from Scarpa, and I mean, what's crazy talking to him? I mean, he's been around Telemark for so long. I didn't even realize. I mean, you're talking NTN. Talks of NTN go all the way back into the 1990s, which is.
Yeah.
Like we were like in high school still, dude.
I mean, we were kids.
Yeah, no.
I mean, the NTN, you know, it started as I think it started as a school project for Evan Bullo, which was the head of R&D here in Rotofella for several years, and also a fantastic skier.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of and the concept is something that I'm not sure how long he has worked on it, but he worked on this concept for several years, a bit on and off, I guess. So when Rotofella made a decision to actually commercialize this, I mean, with Evan as the main driver, it was a really, really bold decision because to really go into this market and really try to change it, I think it shows that the Rotofella has always been willing to take some risks and follow the dreams.
Yeah,
let's say so. And of course, Kim Miller was also a huge part of this whole development process. So I think it's really fun to talk to Kim and also to Evan. He left Rotofella a few years ago, unfortunately, but I think the spirit is still here.
Yeah, definitely.
But this whole launch and this whole, if you go back and read a little bit in the newspapers, it was a kind of what do you call it? A space competition between several companies back then. I think also Black Diamond had something new coming up, so it was kind of it was a lot of talk about Telemark and the NTN and who is going to kind of win the war of bindings. So I think that was a fun time. So of course, when I started, we launched the Freedom. So that was kind of the second step of NTN. But still the same group. So I mean, Kim Miller was also a huge part of this project, together with Evan and Ivar and Thomas. That is still here. Thomas and Ivar is still a major part of our R&D team. Ivar is the head of the whole R&D team today. So I think we have kept a lot of the experience and passion in the company.
Yeah.
Also from back then, because those guys were also part of the whole NTN development.
And so were both of those guys around when Evan was too? Yeah.
So they both were hired by Evan. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is cool. Well, I mean, that's got to be an important, thing, moving forward too, is because, I mean, a few years ago, I know I was working with you guys with the 75 millimeter stuff when you guys still had the Cobra and you had the Cobra R8 and that stuff. But really, 75 isn't really, you guys aren't producing any of that anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So we only produce NTN at the moment. So
Well, I guess that leads me to the, and I know we've talked about this kind of off air, but just for the people, I know everyone's always asking me, what do you think the future for Rotofella in terms of bindings? Because you guys, obviously the Freedom and the Free Ride still sell and people are buying them. Yeah. And now you've got other you guys opened up the patent to other people. So then you've got, M Equipment, 22 Designs, and whatnot that are now making new stuff. Have you guys thought about doing any like research and development into something new in the future, or where are you guys at with that?
Yeah, we are thinking a lot. I think it's a good question that is very difficult to give a very short answer to, if I should be honest.
Yeah, I hear you.
But of course, since we launched the freedom mining, I mean, the main goal with the freedom mining was to have a bit bigger assortment to offer two kind of products to two different kind of usage. And of course, we made a major decision also to give a license on technology to 22 Designs, which was very important for us, especially for the US markets, to help the norm to establish. So I think that was a good decision.
Oh, for sure.
To implement a new norm on the market is a challenge, especially in a market which is quite limited, as Telemark really is. It's kind of it's a stable, but compared to other segments, it's not so big anymore in volumes. So to have two norms is a challenge for sure. So I think. But still, still we are selling products. So, but I think also Rotofella has been through a major change, especially since 2016, because it's important to know that, I mean, the main business for Rotofella, like 95% of our business, has always been cross-country bindings, which is kind of the what is really generate revenues and profit for Rotofella is linked to our cross-country binding and outsoles. And back in 2016, the market changed dramatically because we had one of our major customers for many years with Fisher suddenly decided to launch their own bindings, which was a surprise, to be honest. But still gave us a major hit in our core business. So, of course, since 2016, the fall of 2016, we have been forced to focus heavily to kind of get back on track.
Right. In the cross-country market.
In the cross-country, exactly.
Yeah.
Because without that business, we would be a completely different company. So I think we had to make some really strategic decisions, both how we focus our resources and also how to innovate in a way that can bring Rotofella back to growth. So, but I think one of the major decisions we made was to continue to increase our investments into R&D, because that's our core. And we managed through 17 and 18 to actually get back to significant growth and capture a significant market share again with a new system within cross-country skiing called the Rotofella Move system, which has been a huge success for us. But in this period, when you have to focus and you have to consider the Excel sheets,
yeah,
and you have to be pragmatic, and of course, in those kind of situations, Telemark has not been on the top of our agenda, let's say, because we have to focus on actually surviving.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Well, and if that's 95% of your business, and then all of a sudden you get hit from kind of blindsided with that kind of situation, I'm sure that kind of like you said, that's a detour just to survive. So I mean, from a business standpoint, that totally makes sense, man. You know,
and you know, sometimes you like to work with the brain, and sometimes you like to work with the heart. And of course, most people loves to work mostly with the heart, but sometimes you have to work with the brain as well.
That is true. And, otherwise, they all go away.
So I think in this time we have not focused too much on NTN. We have been selling. It looks like our friends in 22 Designs are continuing to grow, which is really, really positive. And of course but we haven't been too active. So I think that's important to say, and I'm very honest saying that. But it's obvious reasons for it. Then I think what is really good is that throughout of 19, Rotofella are back on track, let's say.
Awesome.
So the team has together really through a fantastic team effort managed to get the company back to profitability and back to growth. Of course, 2020 with the corona situation has affected us a little bit, especially in the first half year of 20. But what is really positive, I think, for the sport industry and maybe especially backcountry skiing and cross-country skiing in general is that we see significant growth in many countries at the moment because people are staying closer to home. Which I think, I'm not saying that the corona situation is positive because it's of course a huge crisis.
Totally, I know.
but at least for people getting out, you spending time in the outdoor and in the mountains on snow also during the coming winter, I think we will see a tremendous growth in interest for that kind of activities in general, which is of course positive.
Yeah, no, at least people are using it for a positive means to like get outside. I mean, and I think you're looking at outdoor stuff like we are, you're looking at like the bikes getting sold. I mean, I know in the US, the bikes have been sold out and people are all sorts of doing outdoor activities, hiking, biking, fishing, running, all that stuff. So, and that's something I can't even imagine your Nordic sales in those areas. I mean, I remember coming to Norway for the first time and getting on the train from the airport. And when I got to Oslo, there was literally people, on the train, just everyone had their cross-country skis with them. And I was like, what? I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, for someone that's never been to a place like that, I actually was incredibly surprised because I think there's a lot of just tracks in general for people to use near the city. Is that correct?
That's very correct. I think that's one of the real unique parts of the Norwegian skiing culture. It's something that people do every day. So it's not like something you do only through vacations. It's really good conditions. Only 15 minutes on the subway from Oslo city and up to the forest. So I think as a capital, I think that's pretty unique.
Oh yeah, totally.
So that's also at least in the southern part of Norway. No, not the southern part, sorry, but southeast and down far south. It's not so much snow, but in the east part of Norway, most towns have very good conditions for cross country skiing.
Yeah, so something that just popped in my mind that I thought maybe you could shed some light on is obviously, I run Freeheel Life, a Telemark specific shop in the States. I know we've kind of touched base on this too with Norway, but maybe can you shed... I know you guys don't have any new Telemark product coming out, but one thing I'm always telling people is, they're like, Telemark's dead or this or that or the other, and I always try to say, hey, it's really a retail issue for what I see, is it's like Telemark retail has died to, it used to be backcountry shops basically that sold it. I'm curious, maybe you could shed some light on what Norway looks like in terms of retail. Are these outdoor shops carrying Telemark as much as they used to?
No, I can't say that. And I think what you did with a Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City is maybe one of the boldest moves I've ever seen. So
thank you.
Congratulations. The shop looks great, and at least last time I was there, you also had a music studio in the garage there. So
that's funny.
Fantastic location.
And we're started running out of room. The music studio is not even here anymore, man.
No.
So
I think the world needs more people like you. I think to do that and to be so specific is fantastic, but also it makes sense. Because I think what you saw is that less and less of the regular outdoor retailers are carrying the goods, meaning that if nobody really takes care of it, it's really a retail issue. And of course, retailers, they will always sell what there is a market for and where they see a demand.
Right.
And I think we have the same challenge also here in Norway. I think there is like the generation that we belongs to that used to do telemark skiing during the 90s and really love the turn and really, you get a lot of attention if you went to the Alps, during end of 90s and ski telemark. People were looking at you because it looks cool.
Yeah, no, that's
and then you maybe have some changes in life. You go to study, you get a family. You're not that active anymore. Then when you get time again to go out skiing, I think a lot of people then have jumped to alpine touring equipment because that's what is kind of hot right now, and it's for some people more comfortable to ski at least downhill with. And of course, then we have the same challenge as you described in US, that retailer stops to carry it. Only a few will do it.
Okay.
And so I think we have the same challenge even in Norway, let's say. So that's kind of, since back to your last question, I think we strongly believe that we have to do something.
Yeah.
And we have some thoughts on what to do, what is the next step for NTN, and we are going to restart kind of these kind of projects again now when we feel that we have control again on the core business. And I think but some of the challenges always, and we have talked about this probably for 10, 15, 20 years, is how to get recruitment into the sport.
Right. Which is the big thing. Like, if you can't make more people, it's hard to sell it, right? It's like, that's the whole, and there's going to be an attrition rate too. You lose people, that's just part of the deal too. So.
So if it's only us that is going to continue with telemark skiing, I mean, the sport is going to die with us.
That's for
I think we take responsibility for this.
Yep. Well, and that's, it's funny because I often I talk about that on the podcast, is like the people that do telemark right now are truly protectors of the turn. You're kind of guarding this thing that's incredibly historic, and it's amazing if you know how to do it. It's not easy to do it, and I think that that probably plays into that culture of building new telemark skiers too. Is there's a lot of people don't like hard stuff, and it's not easy to do. So, and
then I think also, and we have a lot of discussions with that internally here as well. I mean, from a consumer point of view, because I mean, what I remember back, as I talked about before, is always been this kind of wars between, for example, snowboarders and telemark skiers, or snowboarders or alpine skiers. I mean, it was a war between. I remember I had a pair of two Viper skis that I used in the resort with a Rotofella Extreme 75mm binding, and I had a Solo Extreme Plus boot, because that was kind of the closest I could get without being a plastic boot. Yeah,
no, totally.
Because it even went to a war between those that had plastic boots and those that had leather boots. So I think always this kind of, okay, do we really need to have a war? People should just have fun. I think that's what people want.
There's kind of. Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm just thinking that if you ask a 45 or 50-year-old today why he doesn't do telemark skiing anymore, he would say that, why should I do that?
No, that's no, that's funny that you brought that up, because I've been thinking about that more and more, because that is the most common question is, I'll explain telemark. They're like, "Oh, are you a skier?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a telemark skier." And then the first question and I don't remember this question as often as I do more recently, where they're like, "Well, what's the advantage of that?" And it kind of always catches me off guard, because I'm like, I don't actually, there's not an advantage to it. It's just that it's better. No, I'm just, but no, I guess for lack of a better explanation, it feels better, and it's what I've done for a long time. But I feel like maybe there is a little bit of a shift with consumers where everything has to have an advantage. And when you start comparing locking your heel down versus doing a telemark turn, I'm like, okay, yeah, you could look at Alpine as an advantage, I guess, in that sense of having to learn less. But that's why I always say I think it's almost a personality choice at this point. Like you and I are saying, to grow it, you kind of have to find the right type of people, you're not just mass marketing it through a normal ski shop or something, and you're like, this is, you're probably going to lose at that point.
It's never going to be mainstream. I think that's really important, and it shouldn't be, because I think it needs to be special, because if it's special, then you will diversify from the others. And I think Telemark is always going to be for those who are maybe less lazy than the other ones that ask the question, why should I do Telemark? That's because they are lazy. They don't want to do it, because it's harder to do Telemark. It's no doubt. It's harder, and that will always eliminate some people doing it. So I think at least what we have discussed a lot is if we want to make Telemark popular again, we need to get traction back in the resorts. I think resort skiing is I mean, I'm not saying that backcountry or kind of touring is not important, but I think if you want to grow the sport and get new kids into this sport, we need to be focusing much more in resorts, because that's where you can show the others what you can do. And I think for most people that is important.
Yeah, and you and I have been in meetings talking about that, and it makes sense. I mean, if you're looking for the most bang for your buck in terms of showing it to other people, a resort makes sense. But I'm glad that you said that doesn't eliminate backcountry skiing. I mean, that's a piece of it. It's just that
it's two different segments.
Totally.
Because I think for the young people, they would like to have fun. They would like to go to the after ski. They would like to be in the resort. They want to be in the park, and they want to diversify from the masses. And I think we just have to realize that Telemark is never going to be a sport for everyone. I think that's just. I remember I was making a bet with the sales team in Scarpa back in 2012 that if we didn't sell 35,000 pairs of NTN before 2013, I will ski in Loveland in my boxer shorts. So now, of course, I'm telling the story to the whole world of Telemark. So I guess I just have to go there doing it, because we never sold 35,000 pairs.
Oh man, so they're going to be looking for you in Colorado now, man. You got to be careful.
I know.
I've got a good YouTube channel if you want to put the video up when you go. Let me know.
Yeah. No, but I think that's Telemark is for those who wants to stand out a little bit. That's and I think we have to realize that.
Yeah, and it's kind of
like, that's good, I think.
Yeah, stand out. And honestly, like I said, is I think sometimes when I describe it to people, like I think people sometimes often think telemarketers are like elitist, like they think they're better than other people. And I honestly, I really don't think that's the case. I think it is like you just are a different thinker and you kind of just, I don't know, you just want something tougher. I always kind of, I don't know what it's like in Norway, but like, well, actually you guys have you know, CrossFit, you have CrossFit there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you guys have all like the Norwegian and Icelandic CrossFit people that are like, it's like Amund's daughter and she's like, but it's the point being CrossFit's hard, it's not meant for everybody. Some people like to go to the gym and they like to do this stuff. CrossFit's like this whole other realm of it, but people that love it absolutely love it and they do it, and it's difficult. And anyways, it reminds me of things of that nature. I don't think it's elitist. It's just that you kind of have a different flavor than everybody else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, in my opinion, backcountry. If we put it into two segments, resort or backcountry. I mean, for resort, that is one type of equipment you need. I mean, walking function is maybe not so important. Stability is important. Edge control is important. These things that has always been a major benefit of the NTN binding. While for backcountry, I mean, weight and these things is a totally different issue.
Yeah.
So I think it's that's also interesting to see where, because of course what I also see is positive within Telemark and R&D is of course when we have not been too active the last years, but of course they're happening quite a lot anyway. I mean, from M equipment and from other companies. Which is also good to keep momentum, because that also makes us, we have to also, I mean, competition is good because that brings things forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny as you started talking about that. I think that's a question on, Craig Dossey and I were just talking about that, is what might be the future of binding innovation. And we were talking about the fact that no one's really made a resort-specific NTN binding that doesn't have a tour mode on it, and could that decrease the cost or make it more entry level, or I'm sure that's
interesting thoughts.
Yeah, I'm sure that's crossed your guys' mind too. I mean, it seems it's cool, and I agree. Like, competition's the key, and the fact that you guys, I always say, like, the free ride's kind of been a Ferrari of its time, and it's been fun to watch 22 Designs and M Equipment sort of riff off that idea and come up with newer versions of releasability or cartridges or whatnot. So, no, that's cool, man. I forgot to ask you in the beginning. What year did Rotofella begin as a company?
We began in the very, very beginning was 1927, actually. So we are a bit over 90 years old now.
Wow.
It's a real funny story. I mean, we are very royal, here in Scandinavia. We love our kings and queens and princes. But if it's we got a king coming from Denmark, actually, King Håkon, and he had a son that became the king after King Håkon, and his name was King Olav.
Okay.
And he was a very active skier. He was also a ski jumper, actually. So he jumped in Holmenkollen and skied a lot up in Oslo, and also participated in several races. And then the English translation of Rotofella is, for most people maybe know that, but some people doesn't. So the English translation is actually a rat trap.
A rat trap. I love that.
And there was this inventor called Bror Hvitt. He was also a war hero, actually, but very, very active skier, but also an inventor. So he found in a shop a pair of rat traps, and he modified them, and he made ski bindings out of them. And then he went to the ski race in Oslo, and he met King Olav. And King Olav, he said, what kind of binding is that? Oh, it's just a pair of rat traps that I found in my garage.
Really?
And that's where the name came from.
Oh my God. I had no idea. I mean, I knew it was rat trap, and I didn't actually know that he found rat traps and modified them. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's really hilarious. So he made a patent on this invention, and that was the beginning of Rotofella. And then, of course, from the years that we had in between here, there was tons of different binding suppliers and manufacturers. They was very much linked to iron and steel production. But in Norway, you had a ski factory and you had a binding factory more or less in every single small town.
Wow.
So, of course, everyone, many different versions and variations. And then when we came a bit later, the standard of this norm, this N75 norm, became kind of a norm for skiing. And then was a bit narrowed, and then of course the NNN and SNS system was developed in the middle of the 80s as kind of the first real system bindings. But it's quite funny that 75 is still alive. I mean, we still produce 75 millimeter bindings, the Super Telemark binding.
Yep.
It's been more or less the same for decades.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I have Super Telemarks in my museum collection in the shop that are like hot pink from like the 1980s. I mean, whenever I find the 1980s versions of it, I'm like, oh yeah, those are going on a pair of skis for sure, because they're like all these neon colors and stuff. That's pretty cool. Man.
So we are a bit over 90 years old, and then we just moved the whole company from the place where you visited us some years ago to this area, this place in Drammen. And we've been in the same building since 1976.
Wow.
So actually 2 years before you and I were born, the company has been in the same location. So I can tell you, when I started to really dig into the deepest corners in this building, I found a lot of funny stuff that I think you would be interested in.
Oh, I would love
prototypes from the 60s and a lot of things. So I saved everything, so I haven't put anything in the trash.
Oh, thank you. I would love to just look at it, if nothing else. I mean, I remember...
I can make a museum if I want.
Oh, I would love that. No, it's funny because I remember even visiting you. I remember one item that you showed me was a Rotofella Avalanche shovel with a wood handle. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. But that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, when did you make this thing? You know, like it's and even some of the early variations of NTN, there was a board that had each of the bindings on it, and that's cool, man. That's some fun stuff. Well, I guess what's a good... I don't know if it sounds like you guys are starting to think about bindings again, at least just talking about it. So that's hopeful. And, you know, and you guys have been able to stabilize the majority side of the business and start thinking about Telemark. I don't know, like, is there anything else going on? Like people should be thinking about, or I part of why I wanted to have you on here is just to get you in front of all these listeners, because I know I talked to you, but like you said, you guys you've been kind of dormant a little bit, and I think that it's cool to kind of hear, you know, that you guys are still thinking about Telemark skiers, and I think that's awesome. So
yeah, we do, and I think as I said, I mean, we have invested a lot into our R&D department the last years. I think we are a total of 6 guys now, actually, that is only doing development.
Wow.
So we have but we have also a pretty full development plan. We have a pretty aggressive innovation plan for the next years within several different categories. So I think we have strengthened the company a lot from in many different management positions, worked a lot on our strategies. So what I can say is that even though we have been a bit, let's say, relaxed when it comes to NTN and new developments the last years, we are not going to give up. That's the first thing I want to say.
Amazing.
But we need to decide which directions we want to develop. And I think I said something about ideas we have. We believe that we have to at least focus on how to get increased recruitment into the sport, maybe make it a bit more affordable still, but also to focus on the Telemark is for those who want to be a little bit different than the rest. And I think to do that, you need to start to build tribes. And we need to have someone who is going to bring this sport forward also when you and I are gone.
Yeah.
Or you and I and the rest of the community. Sorry, it's not only you and I. I mean, there is a very active Telemark community, which is pretty spread around the world, I would say. But and that's great, because that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But we have to make it cool, and we have to make people, and I would say maybe especially the younger people, realize that when you are doing alpine for 1 or 2 days, it's extremely boring. It's very boring to be in a resort for 2-3 days only doing alpine skiing. So doing Telemark, you make it funnier. You'll look different. The girls will immediately look at you and think you are super cool. You can do tricks that's completely different than what you can do in a pair of alpine skis. I've just been looking at all the things you are doing. So, I think we should still have a goal of having a Telemark skier in some event like X Games or something like that, because doing tricks in the park on Telemark is so much cooler.
Yeah, for sure.
Than on regular alpine equipment. So I think, I will not give up. That's a dream.
I love that, man. Well, I think that's fantastic to hear. I think that's an amazing place for us to kind of leave it, because thanks for doing the podcast, and it's been really cool, like just hearing the inside scoop about Rotofella and that you guys are still on board in the future. And I think this part of why I wanted to get this first podcast out of the way is hopefully the next time I have you on, we might have some news about something in the future, and people already kind of have an idea of maybe what's to come. So
yeah, I think we hope to be able to go to US during winter, but let's see where the restrictions are bringing us. But if we are able to do, I think we should catch up, and maybe we have an update for you then.
I would love that. Well, tusen tack, my brother. That's the best.
Tusen tack to you as well, brother.
Sounds good. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, Torstein.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
That was great. I love being able to kind of dig in with some of these people that are running these companies. And this was one that I was super excited about because Rotofella, obviously, you're talking back to the 1920s, their history with Nordic and Telemark bindings. And it's cool. I've known this, but I wanted to be able to bring that kind of to the forefront by having a podcast and having Torstein on here, because I know that they're dedicated to Telemark still, and I know that they are always kind of tinkering in the background. I know it's fun kind of trying to get a little bit out of those guys and hear maybe what they're doing. But to me, it sounds like there's some progress kind of being thought about, and it'll be fun to see what they come up with in the future, in the coming years. So I couldn't be happier to have been able to have that conversation. That was pretty amazing. So, as far as, like always, thank you for listening. You can always support the podcast by making a donation, of your choice at paypal.me/freeheellife. Always appreciate that. And we are up and rolling at the shop here now, and we are happy to serve you. We want to be your preferred Telemark shop, so you can always support all of our endeavors by shopping at freeheellife.com. And we want to be your Telemark shop this winter and forever. Let us know how we can do a better job of doing that. You can contact us at customerservice@freeheellife.com. You can find news, stoke, photos, videos all on telemarkskier.com. And you can follow us on all of our social channels, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and the like. So thank you so much for listening today. I had a really good time. I hope you did too. And until next week, spread Telemark always.